Hi everyone, you're welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Amaka. In this tutorial, we are going to be learning how to make this beautiful bubu kaftan you're seeing on the thumbnail. If you're yet to subscribe to this channel, please click on the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I upload new videos. So let's get started. This is the fabric I'll be using for this tutorial. Now this is a crepe fabric and I have 2.5 yards of fabric here. But if you want your top to be very big, like to be big, you can use 3 yards. So now my fabric is folded. I folded my fabric into two. I folded it into two. So I'm going to fold it again into 4. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm going to fold it again into 4. So my fabric is folded into 4. Now my fabric is folded into 4. So I'm going to be taking my measurement from this part. Now this part is the part that is on fold. So now from this point, I'm going to take my waist measurement. So my vertical waist measurement is 16 inches. 16 inches. So the full length of this top is 41 inches, and I'm using 1 inch for my hemming allowance. So now I'm going to take my neck measurement. Now the neck width I'm working with is 5 inches. My neck width is 5 inches. My shoulder measurement, my shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 7 inches. Shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 7 inches. Now for my sleeve length, from this shoulder measurement, I'm going to take my sleeve length from this shoulder measurement. Now my sleeve length is 22 inches. 22 inches plus 1 inch hemming allowance. That gives you 22. So I'm working with the whole of this fabric. So now the next thing I'm going to do, from this point, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. From this point, I'll come down by 1.5 inches. And I'll connect this point to the neck width. After that, on the waist point, I'm going to take my waist measurement on the waist point. Now my waist circumference divided by 4 gives you 7.75. Gives you 7.75. Now to transfer this 7.75 to the other side of the fabric, I'm going to place my finger this way and I'll mark. Now I'm touching my finger from here, so I'm going to mark it. So this is where my belt will be. So I'll cut it. So So after cutting the shoulder, I'm going to cut the neck. Now this is how I'm going to cut the neck. You see that this part is still joined together, so I'm just going to hold it this way. I'm going to open it this way and I'll cut. Okay, now let me start by notching. I'm going to notch the neck. I'm going to notch the neck point. So I've notched it, so I'm now going to cut it. So now from here, from this point that I marked for the waist for my belt, I'm going to go in by 3 inches from here. Now I'll go in by 3 inches. Now when I mark 3 inches here, I'm going to check what I have here. Now what I have here is 4.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 4.5 inches down. I'll mark 4.5 inches down to the hem. So I'll connect the points. So for the sleeve opening, now from this shoulder point that I've already cut, I'm going to come down by 7 inches. For the sleeve opening, I'm going to use 7 inches. You know, this is going to be around my wrist, so it's not big. So I'm using 7 inches for it. 7 inches. And from here, now from this point, I'm going to mark 1 inch down. I'm going to mark 1 inch down. I'll mark 1 inch to the hem. So I'm going to connect the points. So now on this point, I'm just going to do a curve, like a slight curve. Just a slight curve. Take note, from my shoulder slant that I've already cut off, I came down by 7 inches for my sleeve opening. So I'm going to separate the front from the back. I'll remove the back. While I finish the front. Okay, let me open this. Okay, so this is, now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this my sewing machine. I'm going to start by hemming the lower part. I'll hem the lower part. After hemming the lower part, then I have this strap here. I'm going to fold this strap and I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch seam allowance. After sewing, I'll place it on this point and I'll fold in 1/2 inch from here. Now what I have here is 3 inches. This is 3 inches. The width of this thing is 3 inches. So I'm going to fold in 1/2 inch and I'll sew it to the hem. I'll sew it down to the hem. So the same thing I'm also going to do here. I'm also going to fold in 1/2 inch and I'll sew it down to the hem. So after that, after sewing, I'm going to sew the middle. I'm going to sew the middle so that I can create the casing for the drawstring, for the ropes. Just to create the casing for the rope, I'm going to sew this. I'm going to sew the middle. After sewing the the edges, after sewing the edges with half-inch seam allowance, that is folding in half-inch seam allowance, and top stitching, I'm going to sew the middle, the center. When I sew the middle, I'm going to have two holes. That is two casing, which I'm going to put the rope that I'm going to use to, the drawstring, for the drawstring. Okay, so after that, now I have my belt here. I have to do it off camera. It's very easy to make, so I have to do it off camera. So now this is what I'm going to do. This is my waist point. These 2 points that I marked, I'm going to sew my belt on these 2 points. I'm going to sew one here, and I'm going to sew one here. So that's it with the belt. Now for the neck, let me show you how to join the neck. So right now, I have the front panel and the back panel here. This is the front panel and this is the back panel. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. Now to join the shoulders, I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to join the shoulders. Now I'm going to sew from here. From this point, I'm going to sew from this point and I'll sew to the neck point. Now this is the neck. You remember that I notched the neck, that 5 inches I notched. So I'm going to sew to this point and I'm going to stop here. I'll sew with 1 inch seam allowance and I'll stop here. So the same way I'm going to sew here from this other side, I'll sew with 1 inch seam allowance and I'll stop here. I'll stop on this point. You remember that I notched here. Now this is my neck. This is my neck width. This is my neck measurement. My 5 inches neck width that I notched. So this is it. So I'm going to sew from here with 1 inch to this point, and I'll sew from here with 1 inch to this point, and I'll stop here. So I'm going to do, and for the back panel, I'm also going to hem the back panel with 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do all these things that I just said and show you what it looks like. So after sewing, now this is what I have. I've fixed the belt. Now these are my belts. I've also created this channel for the straps. So for the neckline, for the shoulder, now I've joined the shoulders. I've sewn the shoulder to this point, to the neck point, and I sewed here to this point. Now please use 6 inches. I think 6 inches is okay. 6 inches will be perfect for everybody, except if you're very small. What I finally used for my neck is 6 inches. 5 inches was, it was small, so I had to increase my neck measurement to 6 inches. So you can use 6 inches, you can use 7 inches, or you can also use 5 inches depending on your size. So now this is it. I've sewn the shoulder. I sewed it with 1 inch seam allowance. So this is it. I sewed it with 1 inch seam allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do now if you have overlocking machine, you can just use your overlocking machine and overlock everywhere. Like from here, you overlock from this shoulder to this point. You understand? From this to this point. But if you don't have overlocking machine, another way to do this is to sew it. To sew the neck, now you fold in 1/2 inch. What you have here already is 1 inch seam allowance. So you fold in your 1/2 inch and you fold in another 1/2 inch, making it 1 inch, and you top stitch. It will still be neat. You can just do it neatly and it will be okay. To be very okay. So, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew mine. I'm going to fold in 1/2 inch and I will fold in 1/2 inch. And that's how I'm going to sew the front panel the same way I'll sew the front panel. That's how I'm going to sew the back panel. Now let me show you how to fix in the straps. So for the straps, now I have my straps here. I had to fold, it's very easy. I have my straps here. So this is what I'm going to do. If you have your safety pin, you can use your safety pin, but if you don't have safety pin, you can also do it the same way that I'm doing mine. Now this is my needle and thread. I have my needle and thread here. I've tied it already. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to tie this strap with my needle and thread, and I'm going to push it into these holes. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm pushing the head, not here, not the sharp part, the head I'm pushing. So I'm just going to push it in. So I've pushed it in. Now this is it. Okay, so the same way I'm going to do this, I'm also going to do this. I'm going to do this off camera. So now I've sewn, I've fixed the straps into the casing. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew it this way. I'll just sew it this way just to secure the straps. So after that, I'm going to sew the sleeve. I'm going to hem the sleeve with 1 inch seam allowance. So I'll sew with 1 inch. I'm going to sew the sides with 1 inch seam allowance. 1 inch seam allowance to this point. You might be wondering why this place is small. You know, this part is the wrist. It's my wrist. So I'll just sew with 1 inch seam allowance, and that would just be it. And that's just it. So I'm going to do all these things that I just said and show you what it looks like. So I've finished sewing. I've closed the sleeve and the sides. I've also hemmed the lower part. For the neck, now this is how I did the neck. I've closed the neck. So this is what I did. I sewed it and I folded the seam allowance to the side and top stitched. So this is what I did. Hope you're seeing what I'm showing you. So this is how I did it. Then when I got to this point, I continued with my sewing and sewed to this point and folded it in. So it's neater this way. So this is how the neck is. So from the right side, this is how the neck is. I think this is the best way. So now for this part, so this is a drawstring. So that's just it with this tutorial. Now I'm going to wear this on my mannequin and show you what it looks like. If you found this tutorial helpful, please click on the like button. Share this video with your friends. Share this video in your sewing groups. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be in the comment section to answer all your questions. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.